Wednesday, November 6th, and we will start with the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Blackburn?
Present.
Ms. Fritsch?
Present.
Mr. Midgley?
Present.
Mr. Scholey?
Present.
Dr. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Speakman?
Present.
All right, starting with administration, please.
Okay, there will actually be a more formal presentation of the 2025 budget in December, but at your desk tonight is a draft of the 2025 operating budget as well as the 2025 capital improvement program. Mr. Emasini, Mr. Speakman, and I, mainly those two, have been working to develop this budget over the last few months with input from all of our department heads. Hard copies of the budget, again, are at your desk. As per the controller's instruction, please take them home and study them in advance of our meeting on Monday night. We have a budget meeting November 11th, Monday, November 11th, 6 p.m. at the community center. So please give those a once over. Mr. Speakman, if you have anything you want to add, you have a narrative on the operating budget in there. If you have something you'd like to add, by all means.
I have nothing to add. You've been through this before, and so the narrative is best read through and do it as you work through the budget and turn the pages, and there's some dialogue in there that brings and highlights some of the results for this year and the budget into next year. But enjoy.
Thank you for the narrative. It's always quite helpful. I do have a question, and maybe it's in there, and if so, then we can just table it and talk about it on Monday. I know that the executive director of Shaler Hampton EMS had been asking for improved accommodations for his staff, and I was just wondering if that had been included or was under consideration for this year's budget.
There is a provision of money in there for a potential improvement, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
Yeah, that's in the capital improvement.
Right,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Is there anything else wildly different from any other year that you'd say to point out or focus on, or it's run of the mill?
It's fairly standard. I mean, no real big changes. You'll see that the biggest changes is in salaries and benefits, which is somewhat of an annual increase. The allocation for funds for the ordinance update is the biggest introduction of a new item that's in there this year. And still am anticipating a $500,000 plus surplus for this year. We actually have, during the processes, we've encouraged a couple of expenditures that weren't necessarily slotted this year, but we went for them this year because we've got the money, and that way we can help ease the budget next year. But
Thanks,
and we
Jerry.
will. You'll see that the biggest unknown still gets around our tax refund situation and how much that's going to be. So it's taking a best guess.
Right.
There's no way to be able to predict or anticipate how many appeals
Yeah, a
or
lot of moving
assessments
parts.
there are going to be. So it's solid. I think that we're doing very well. We've been very fortunate.
I don't think that's real wood.
But hey, whatever works.
Thank you, Jerry. Any other questions? All right, item B, please.
Yeah, we're seeking approval to advertise RFP for a tax and revenue anticipation note in the amount of $1.5 million for 2025. This is an annual exercise. This is the same amount we sought for 2024, and it's included in the 2025 budget as well. We solicit from a number of banks and lending institutions. The reason we need to do these anticipation notes is we have a large debt service payment in January of each year, and this helps fund that payment. So, and historically, as Mr. Emasini will tell you, actually I shouldn't say historically, recently We've actually made more interest on the anticipation note than we're charged, so don't tell the banks that.
All right, any questions?
And it has been paid back for this year.
Yes.
Yes, I signed the check for it. Another one of those heart-stopping ones.
1.5 million. Yeah.
All right, item C, please.
Jerry, I don't know if you and I want to do this one together, the transfer of funds from the general operating to the CIP. As Mr. Speakman noted, we are anticipating revenue over expense of $500,000 for the current budget year in the operating budget. And in order to fund some capital improvements for next year, they're in the capital improvement plan. We were proposing to transfer that money to the capital improvement plan for 2025. Jerry, I'll defer to you, sir. If you-
Yeah, it's similar to what we've done the last 2-3 years when we've had the surplus. And we will basically wait until the end of December and gather as much revenue and expense information as we can, and then we'll make a move right at the very end of the year. So this is just at the end of the month asking for pre-approval not to exceed $500,000. If it doesn't prove out to be that, then we won't move that much, but right now, it looks like that would be good.
So I have a question. Given that we anticipate in a couple of years down the road that we're going to be constructing a new public safety facility, fire department, I'm just curious to know, are we maybe taking some of this surplus and maybe putting it aside, knowing that we're going to need it 3 or 4 years down the road? Can we do something like that?
Well, then you would have to come up with another way to be able to fund the capital improvement projects that are in the plan for next year.
And the point I would make to you, though, also is if you do this survey, if you do this transfer, you're actually saving all of the interest you would earn off the bond funds. We would not tap into that bond interest the way we did this year. So that would be, you wouldn't have to do that for the 2025 CIP. That money would be out there in future years for potentially design of that station or whatever, other capital projects we may have. So we would be saving that money for a future project such as that.
And the scope of that project is going to far exceed anything
Right.
that we could build a little bit
Yeah.
of a fund up for. So,
Yeah, I'm just thinking, there's always numerous grants out there, and it's always advantageous to have a match with that. So maybe that's something that, we can start thinking about now, just to position us well for the future.
Absolutely.
So I'm hearing that ask as from Bethany. When we go through the budget, to do what you're suggesting, we would need to reduce equal amount from the CIP for next year.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, unfortunately, those aren't just excess funds.
Right.
They are earmarked for
Right,
projects.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, in doing this, we're also able to save our capital reserve from tapping into that for public works equipment next year as well. So, it works out pretty well.
All right, any other questions about the transfer? Anything else for administration?
I do not have anything now.
All right. Chief, anything for public safety?
I have absolutely nothing.
Nice to have a nice, quiet community. Then community services.
Good evening. I submitted a memorandum requesting award recommendations through the Shea Hogs Fall Commodities, basically for winter products, calcium chloride, which we already have enough from last year, liquid calcium chloride, and snowplow blades. So I'm asking for your consideration at the regular meeting.
Any questions?
I guess when I looked through it briefly and there were a bunch of different vendors, that recommendation will come. Or did you make it already? Or the
Made it
one we're gonna
already
purchase?
in the
Okay.
memo that I submitted.
Yep, that's what I thought, okay.
Yes, so
I
for the
wasn't clear.
blades, there's 2 different companies there, Chemung, and we usually order our
Chemung.
blades through Stevenson Equipment, and we're requesting both, because Chemung was much cheaper, surprisingly. So Stevenson is closer in emergency situations, we would probably go
Makes
get them
sense.
from Stevenson.
And one of the, was it Salter? Remind me what.
Calcium
Calcium
chloride?
Yeah, so one of the companies was Canadian, but we're not gonna purchase from them.
No, they, on the entire list, they indicate which ones that
Okay.
have submitted bids for that product. So for the calcium chloride, it's E.H. Griffith.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, anything else for community services?
Nothing else unless you have questions. Thanks.
Environmental services.
Thank you, Madam President. The first item I have is regarding the change order for the SCADA upgrades. I know before we were going to go into conversation, the manager requested that a video that I had shared with council before via email that could be played. Basically what, I had an opportunity a number of months ago to spend several hours with Jerry, actually visiting all the specific sites as a part of this project. And the recommendation was to, basically to put together a short video of 2 of the sites, actually specifically showing those details and why these upgrades and changes were needed. So if we're able to share that video. And well, hello and welcome to the Hampton Oaks Pump Station. Today we want to take the time to show you some of the improvements that we're going to be requesting to be made here at the pump station. So if you follow me, I'll show you inside the station. Here inside the station you'll see the wells, and our submersible pumps are located here down in this well. And the building is where we actually have all of our controls, power supply, and our generator. So the primary amount of work that is needed here at Hampton Oaks Pump Station is the replacement of our electrical and communication panel that you see here, this blue panel next to me. This panel was actually established here at the pump station when the pump station was created several decades ago, and it's been retrofitted multiple times as changes for communication and power needed over time. So let me show you inside the panel to show you exactly what we need to do. So inside the panel, we have all of our electrical and communication systems combined in one box. This is traditionally not done for the sake of safety as a first, and also the communication equipment really should never be around high voltage power because it will eventually destroy the equipment. In here we have 3-phase power, which I want to be very careful not to touch. If somebody makes contact with any of the open circuitry here, someone could be electrocuted very quickly. So as a part of the request that we are looking at is to establish 2 separate panel boxes to replace this one singular box, putting our power in one of those panels and then having our communication systems in a separate panel. Like mentioning before, the power and communication should never be in the same location for the protection of the communication equipment and safety. So here in the panel right now, this is our electrical equipment here. You can see from the breakers, power simply flows in without a VFD. That's a variable frequency drive. We have very old and antiquated communication systems, from these old switches to a very old SCADA pack. This is technology from the 1980s and 1990s. And then our Honeywell equipment, which has been out of service now for about a year or 2, hasn't functioned for us. So in the new panels, again, the electric in one for safety, that'll actually have a variable frequency drive, which will actually help assist the power going to our pumps that you saw in the wet well outdoors, as well as ramping up and down power for the lifespan of the pumps. From a communication side here, we do not have a firewall for the sake of safety. That is a key piece for the sake of protection against cybersecurity, and the new panel will have that. I mentioned the power. Unfortunately here, the way this control system is currently functioning, we do not have the ability to run an automatic mode when our generator, which is located here, is functioning. Whenever we're having a power outage and power is being supplied buy the generator, staff unfortunately have to come out and basically babysit this facility to make sure that the power stays operational during that length of time. This system should be able to do that without staff being on the premises. So by changing this out will actually help eliminate some unneeded call-outs by staff. The SCADA pack, again, is one of the older technologies that is no longer available in causing us a lot of issues for communications. And I mentioned already about the VFDs helping with the electrical side. So by having two separate panels, it will keep things much safer and allow us to properly communicate back to the SCADA system at the treatment plant for monitoring and control purposes. Thank you.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Willow Run metering station. This location behind me is one of the two metering stations that we have that monitors the flow coming in from Richland Township. Along the railroad tracks behind me, one of the two main lines is actually coming down along the railroad tracks into our metering pit here from Richland Township. Let me show you the panel in which we're requesting to have changed. Below me here is the actual metering pit. In this vault is measuring equipment that monitors the flow coming from Richland Township as a part of our agreement with Richland. And here's the actual control panel that has been well decorated that we need to have replaced. The panel itself has several pieces of equipment in it. We have our actual metering device, which is the actual hardware to communicate the information coming from our flow meter down in the metering pit. This will remain as a part of the project. Our communication system here is Honeywell equipment, which is no longer functioning. This is our battery backup unit to provide protection during power outages. We're looking at replacing the panel itself and making it a little bit more sturdy because right now it's a concern. This facility currently does not have any protections from a firewall standpoint. The new unit will actually have the firewall equipment built in with the communication ability to send the information from here via the SCADA system back at the treatment plant for recording purposes. So again, this is the panel, one of the two panels that we're looking at replacing at our meter locations. Thank you.
So thank you for taking the time to see that. Again, those are just two of the 6 locations that we're looking at having upgrades made to. There was 2 different documents that were, I believe, distributed. One was an email/memo from KLH Engineers for the expense aspect of the boxes and the SCADA integration work and the equipment associated with it. There's also some needs from an electrician group, and we worked with Calista to be able to put that together. That is a change order, I believe, change order number 5. Request will be 2 weeks to have both of those approved by council so we can move forward. The boxes that we are looking at having constructed will take time to build. Everything is custom constructed and put together. So the goal is to try to have this hopefully sometime in the middle of next year to be integrated at all the locations. Any questions?
I already sent a bunch over to Brian, so.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do you know who the panel shop is that's going to build the panels?
I do not. It's whoever KLH traditionally works with.
I didn't know if they were local-ish or if it's another situation where we're waiting on a switchgear.
I believe they're moving along much faster with the construction of those cabinets now than it were just a couple years ago. So they can also outsource it to others locally to
Yeah.
this building for the same time.
And then on the metering pits, do we use that to bill Richland, or is it just kind of a?
We do not. We have a flow agreement with Richland Township not to exceed certain amounts, which is something that we should be re-looking at in the near future. It's been many, many years since we had that agreement last written.
I didn't know if we needed the meters to be certified and calibrated every year or whatever it happens to be, but if we're not billing against it, just
It's not,
kind
they
of
shared the data.
kind of a gauge as opposed to a.
We do share the data with them.
access to it, their engineers have a chance to see that. The goal is to also help them be aware of the amount of flow coming into our facilities and address their I&I issues on their side. That's the goal.
If they shut it, if they exceed their limit, do we turn the valve and shut them off?
There's no valve.
Yeah.
But there are technical penalties in there, but
I-
I don't believe they've ever had a situation where they've been penalized.
Jim and I will meet with, they have a new manager, so no better time to meet with them than when you meet with a new guy and say, hey,
Yep.
by the way, this agreement that we had for like 30 years, we're gonna have to look at it. But Jim and I are gonna sit down with them in 2025.
Any other questions? All right, next item, please.
I'd like to-
Yeah. Well, you and I are going to do this one together a little bit. Each year, in 2024 and 2025, there's an allotment within our budget of $180,000 for sludge hauling at the treatment plant. This contract's held by Vogel Disposal. They won the last bid on this back in 2022, but they were also the only firm that bid on this. So what Jim and I are coming to you tonight in 2 weeks for, is an extension of our existing contract for a period of 2 years. And the reason for that is twofold. One, we're adding grit hauling to the contract because our new treatment plant, as you've all witnessed from being down there, it separates the grit from the sludge. But two, at this point, bidding this out, I don't know how we would bid it because we're not producing sludge at the moment. We have no data on how the current sludge, with the new plant, how much sludge it would produce. Doing a 2-year extension buys us the time to collect the data from Vogel. Our contract with them expires at the end of February of next year. They're proposing 2 increases in sludge hauling costs, 4% next year, and then 3% in the second year, which 7% increase over 2 years, given the fact that the previous time we bid it, it was a 15.6% increase for 1 year. I think I'm willing to kind of take that risk. My memo from October 30th kind of lays out a lot of the costs that we anticipate with this. It's an unknown in the 2025 budget, as Mr. Speakman will attest. I know, Jim, right now you guys are manually making sludge, essentially.
We are. Unfortunately, we're in this weird middle of the road stage. This is a one shot in a lifetime event where, as we're bringing a new facility on and sludge is being produced, our current digesters are not operational yet, so we're having to use our old system until it is operational. There will be a period of time where we're filling those digesters and not actually utilizing the sludge removal processes for a period of time. I would assume that's going to be 1 to 2 months. So that will be a significant savings for the 25 budget. We won't be seeing that probably until the first quarter of next year, until everything is completely constructed and ready to be operational.
So again, we're looking for an extension for 2 years of our existing sludge contract for the aforementioned reasons. I don't know if there's any questions about it or the cost that we kind of outlined in the memo. Okay.
Anything else, Jim?
And, yes.
All right, zoning and planning, please.
Okay, thank you. So the first item tonight is the Fry Cane Pioneer Place application. Well, another table.
We're
The
not
only good
terribly
news is,
surprised.
yeah, I'm not surprised, but the only good news is I've told them they need to have their engineering, especially their stormwater, clean before they come back here. So I think that's why they have asked for another table. I talked to the developer, he said they have been having meetings with Adam at PVE, so they are working through the items, but they're just not there yet. So I would ask that this be pushed to the side.
Any questions? I think you predicted it last time.
Yes, yes.
All right, next item.
Okay, next item. This one's also kind of a little bit in motion. So when I wrote my memo, I had not received their actual request. I knew he wanted to have some money released, has completed some items, but he didn't send me the actual dollar amount and the breakdowns. So I did get that since then. Gateway has looked at it. They are going to prepare an adjusted amount. you know, I see no reason, if there's no reason for us not to grant it, for us to hold off on it. So, you know, provided I have that recommendation from Gateway for your next meeting, I would recommend releasing that. It's only funds that are related to the erection of ENS controls and then some of the excavation. So it's stuff he has legitimately done, and if we can, I'm happy to do it, and if not, then I would just say that we would move that to December as well.
All right, any questions? Anything else?
I do not.
All right, thank you. Other business?
Only thing is the aforementioned upcoming budget meeting next Monday night at 6 o'clock. So we'll be providing dinner, so come with an appetite.
And we do have our holiday events coming up. The only thing that I wanted to point out is while we do list the Santa Sparktacular holiday event from 7 to 9, the food trucks arrive by 6:30, don't
Yes.
they? So there is that. And I do have one other thing, which is 2 weeks ago, I thanked Melanie and her team for putting together the Halloween event, but I neglected to thank someone for the very delicious cookies that were provided. So
That's
thank you
right.
for that. All right, does anyone else have anything that they would like to add? All right, then I will adjourn this evening's meeting. Thank you, everyone. Frank, thank you for coming.
What, 24 minutes?
Oh,
Oh,
we still have
26
26